And I always get my phone just to make sure we are live because, Facebook be tripping sometimes.
Yes.
It does. So I just want to verify that we are live. And I don't see us yet, but let me check here one more time just to make sure. And because I want to also, yes, we are good. Yay! I
Hey,
see
good
our
morning.
pretty faces and you look really nice today. I like the glasses and everything. So,
Thank you.
so hey, in just a second, we'll be sharing the tea on diversity, equity, and inclusion for nonprofits. But if you've never met me before, I'm Sabrina, the founder of Supporting World Hope, a nonprofit consulting company. I started after 25 years in the industry. And we have with us today Jasmine Fluker. She's the founder and executive director of the Pivotal Paradigm Project. So before we get started, I want you to click the like or heart button if you can hear me loud and clear. And let me know where you're watching from, even if you're watching in rebroadcast, because this is going to help us with these crazy Facebook algorithms. So thank you for joining us. I see we had some people joining us. Thank y'all. They're excited about this conversation, Jasmine. So, Jasmine, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience.
Yes. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm glad everybody's excited. Also super excited. Like she said, I am the founder and executive director of the Pivotal Paradigm Project. It's a full service DEI consulting firm. And I kind of launched into that work after I taught in New Orleans, and I also did some organizing work and other diversity equity work. I had when I moved, so I'm based in Buffalo. So when I moved to Buffalo, I decided to get my master's in DEI, and I was already taking clients. I was doing like, the thing we do, like, let me have coffee with you, let me grab you, pick your brain. And I was already doing that work. And so I formalized it into the Pivotal Paradigm Project, but it's always been my passion. If you meet people that probably knew me like 10 years ago, like I've been that person that never like kind of shut up about these things, and I'm still like talking about these things, but now it's in a format that like I get to help people like be in a workplace that's more inclusive, which I love, and I also get to do things like work that I'm passionate about.
That is awesome. And so I'm so happy that we have the expert here because people want to know what is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, so the thing about DEI, it's getting thrown around a lot right now. So it's three terms: diversity, equity, inclusion, that should be in practice, but sometimes it's also used as an action. So diversity is just like the base level. So like that's when you check a box, like I have a diverse group of people. So that could be race, color, ethnicity, nationality, religion, socioeconomic status, veteran status, marital status, language, age, gender expression. It can be any of those intersections that we orient to as people. And a lot of times it is associated with race, but it's not also not limited to that as well. So that's diversity. And then equity is just like guarantee a fair treatment opportunity for advancement, and it makes sure everything is equal. So equity used to be like what we would strive for, but inclusion is the feeling. So it's like culturally, how do you feel about a place? So it means that the processes, the activities, the decision making, all of those things like power, access to money, all of those things are equivalated so that you are in a place where you culturally feel included and inclusive, and your voice is, so you're in a diverse place where you have landed, where there's representation, there's equity, where everything is equitable, not to be confused with equality. Quality is equal. Equity means each person gets what they need in order to be on the same ground. Equality means everybody gets the same thing like everybody gets the same leg up, but equity gives each person a different leg up based on what they need. And then inclusion means that culturally you feel like you're in a place where you feel like your values supported, your voice is being heard, and like all of those things. So DEI is all of those things. It's also an action, and it should be in practice is the biggest thing to like take away.
Okay. And so why should nonprofits, why should diversity, equity, and inclusion matter for nonprofits?
So I think it's especially important for nonprofits. When I work with, first of all, I love working with nonprofits. They are one of my favorite clients because it's guaranteed that the people are already mission driven. So it's a mission driven organization. And a lot of times the constituents that you are serving are people of color just because of like the social structure that we live in America. So nonprofits serve as a place to like support usually people of color or any other marginalized group to attain something and make sure something is equitable. So a lot of times nonprofits are already serving that group, and it's important because they want to have representation, they want to have diverse governance structures, and they want to like retain the people that they have. So for nonprofits, um, they pick people generally that are aligned to the same mission that they are aligned to, but at the same time, they want to represent the community or the group that they are serving.
Okay. So what do you see as the three biggest issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Hmm, I would say, and this is like this is just my opinion.
Yes.
I would say right now what I see is board governance seems to be a big one. I get a lot of calls about like boards, and like how to make boards inclusive.
Mhm.
Recruiting and retaining staff members of color, and then there's that third one where it's like either there's like a huge fallout, like some type of trauma has happened. Like there's like a PR scandal, or there's like some type of I'm gonna say perceived racist event or activity because everyone has their perception around what happened in the organization, and so those are the big things like huge blow ups, the actual governance structure, and then recruiting and retaining staff members.
And so that makes sense to me. So board diversity, staff diversity, and then a response to PR, to a
Mm-hmm.
PR, perceived PR racist issue.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So when nonprofits are looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, how can they intentionally make space for it, especially around those three biggest issues that you talked about?
So I think like one thing that they can do is just like make sure that the practices and the policy. So like on like base level on paper, make sure like you're saying like these are the things we're going to do. Now, once you do that, you should be auditing and making sure that not only it aligns with your mission, but you're continuing to like follow up and make sure those things make sense. Um, I would say leave room for participant voice. So depending on who they're serving, they should leave room for voice, for staff feedback as well, and then just continuously checking for mission alignment, and that could be at any level. So your board should be mission aligned, your staff should be mission aligned, and then you should be hearing from the actual community that you are serving in all of your decisions.
That makes sense because you want to hear from your community. So, hey, if you're just joining us, welcome to our broadcast. And we're currently talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion for nonprofits. And we've just covered some great topics around what are the biggest challenge, what exactly does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean. I've learned so much, especially around inclusion. It's the sense of belonging is what I got when Jasmine was talking. So let us know where you're watching from. Hit the heart or like button. I see you there. I'm not as up on Facebook, so I can call out your name. I wish I could. I glance down going, okay, who's there? I see all the hearts and likes. So thank y'all for that. It's going to help us with our Facebook algorithms. If you put in the comments, I'll definitely know who you are and I can call you out. Just put kind of where you're from. And so we'll know. So, Jasmine, what's the starting point for nonprofit to address DEI?
Ooh, you have to see where you are. So I feel like auditing like your practices is like where you should start. There are some things that you can audit very easily. Like I can go on the website and see like, are there people of color? But like you would know like the intricacies of your organization. Like you know how many people of color you have, you know how many people of color are in leadership. You know how many people of color are on your board. I think auditing is a really good place to start, just kind of taking stock of like where you are and then knowing from there, like, okay, this is where I am as an org, and like here are some gaps or like some places we could move forward and do better in.
Okay. I have a question that's not on here, but I know you can answer it. So I was in a forum and someone said, well, how do I recruit for diversity on my board without seeming as if I'm recruiting for diversity on my board? And I didn't know how to answer that.
And this question has came up so much in like the past few months. I think the first thing to do is like a board matrix. So like see who is currently on your board, because you're looking for diverse talent, but that does not mean that we like people of color or from any other marginalized group do not have the skills that are also needed to be on the board. So that's the first thing. So I would say like take stock of who is on your board. The second thing I would say is like one of the things that I've seen in approaching people of color to be on the board is like because of internalized racial oppression, we have like this imposter syndrome that we feel like we are not ready. So we feel like, oh, we're not ready to be on the board. I can't serve. I can't do that. They don't want to hear from me. And so there may be some time where you are having conversation and you may have to affirm the skills. Like, I know these are the skills that you have already, and they would be great for my organization. And I want you to serve because I've seen you do XYZ, or I know you can do XYZ. And so I've seen that become a barrier to some populations when you're trying to get people on the board. It's just like we feel like we're not ready, and I've suffered from that, and probably every other person. Um, but I think like checking where you are, and then like really determining a strong bench or list of people that would fit like the gaps that you have. Like I need a person that's a marketing person. I would like them to identify as the Latinx person because of this organization that I'm serving in, and
Mhm.
like identifying those people, and then really affirming the skills that they have and like what they could potentially bring to your board if they are aligned with your mission.
That makes sense. So, what are some practical ideas for improving equity and inclusion at a nonprofit?
Ooh, some practical. So I think the most practical thing you can do, like just base level, is just making sure you have like a continuous culture of feedback. And like whether that's with staff, that's with your community, like I think cultivating that really helps you to create diversity, equity, and inclusion, because you're gonna reach the people that are already there, that are representative of what you're trying to do. It's going to be more equitable because people are going to feel like they can share their voice and people are going to feel more included. Now, with the culture of feedback, I think it's very important that you are careful, because if you are sharing a lot of feedback and you're not seeing it being implemented, you're going to
Mhm.
kind of hit a wall. Like you're going to be like, okay,
Yeah,
I like, I've seen that happen a lot of
going through
times
the
with
motions, right?
like, hey, I've told y'all 3 times I don't like this, and nobody has done anything. I think when sharing back out your feedback, like, hey, I work for XYZ org. You say you don't like the way that we shout out people that work in our organization. We could be more inclusive. Because of that, we have done XYZ. People need to know like what the actions are, or they're gonna shut down and stop sharing information. And so I think like that's super important. But a culture of feedback, just like throughout your whole organization, is like the most practical thing you can do.
That makes sense to me. I want to give some shout outs because I have some comments. I want to say hi to Melissa, Cheryl, and Abe for joining us. Thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for the comments as
Yeah.
well. And we will be answering questions later on. So if you have a question as we're discussing, just put it in the comments and we will get to the Q&A in a few minutes. So as you were talking about feedback and we kind of went into the board and having that, one of the questions is, how can you encourage your board to have an explicit conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
So with board, and I just did some work around this not that long ago. So I think with boards, the first thing is like you already have a board, so it's already established. But before you onboard anybody else, make sure you are onboarding people to orient that this is going to be philanthropy and advocacy around this issue. So that's the first thing. Like a lot of times people get on board because of philanthropy, and we as organizational leaders do recruit people like, hey, they got connections to money, I kind of need them. So we are we do that. But like when you onboard people onto your board, make sure you that they know, like, I'm gonna need you to advocate around this issue, and this is how we are showing up as an organization. Like we are showing up in a way that's inclusive around this issue, and I'm gonna need you to do that too. So that's the first thing, like letting people know where they are. And then the second thing is that's kind of tricky. It's like you already have people on your board. There are like three groups. There's always three groups. There are people that are like allies, advocates, and practitioners. Like they can take this thing and they can run with it. You don't need to tell them nothing else. They're fine on the board. You can leave them where they are. There's a middle group that is teachable. Like they have some knowledge around it, but they can really grow. And you want to keep them. Though they're great. And then there's a group that may be a little bit intolerable, that is on your board. Yes. And so I think like for that latter group is they care about the issue because they are on the board, but you may have to have a conversation with them about serving differently or making more space for other people to serve in a way that is more, that leans more to advocating. Yeah, either they can shift to the middle group, or you may have you may just like have to have that difficult conversation as a leader.
Wow. Okay. So a couple of things that I heard that I think I should reinforce, only because I am in total agreement with you around orientation. I never thought to include the diversity conversation in the orientation, but I do encourage nonprofits to hold the orientation. So that's something I'm going to start to, to add as well. So thank you for that. I think just those practical steps, like you said, feedback loops, adding it into your orientation, doing the matrix, things like that will help you along this journey. So thank you for that. So how does one reach people who think that they are open-minded about diversity and inclusion, but really are not, without alienating them?
Yeah. So this is another one that I've heard a lot. So I think so. I will say this: we live in a culture that's very much like a cancel culture. Like you say one wrong thing, like you're cut off, like you're done. We call people out, blast them on social media, and sometimes that's warranted. I'm not gonna say that's not warranted. Sometimes that is warranted, but I think if you call people in, sometimes that will get you a better result. And by calling in, so calling out means I'm going to like blast what you have done. I'm going to tell you what you have done wrong, and I'm going to expect you to change. And a lot of times people don't change. Like if you call somebody racist, they're going to be triggered. Like you said that I'm racist, like I can't hear anything else. I think it's your amygdala gets triggered, like you can't hear anything else. Like your prefrontal cortex is like, no, they said I'm racist, I can't focus right now. When you call people in, you are assuming the best of their intentions no matter what. And literally I had to coach myself even around this. I'm like, they meant well, and they did not mean to say it in this way or show up in this way. So when you're calling people in, you are assuming the best. You're saying like, this is something that you have done, I don't agree with that. So how can we have an open conversation where we can move closer to the issue? Um, and so I've seen calling people in work a lot better. You're able to keep your relationship that you already have with that person. And then there's always like a space for them or a seat at the table if they come back and they show that they have growth and can do better. So I think calling people in is very important. One thing that I have been like in practice with lately is like, if I call you into an issue and you see that, okay, I was wrong. Like you come back and you're like, okay, I was wrong. My expectation like is that now that when other people are around you and say similar things or do similar things, you are to call them in as well. And I think we can get a lot more done advocating wise if we call people in and expect them to call the people that they know in as well.
You know, I've never heard the term call people in, call them in. I've heard call them out because I do that.
Yes.
I've never heard call them in, and I really like it. It's kind of a mature response to a situation,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, a lot of us are not mature. But I'm going to start using calling. I can't even say it, girl. I got to work myself around that calling in. I think that is one of my aha moments from this conversation is calling people in and having that conversation instead of having it, fester, I guess, would be the next thing where you actually calling people out. So, wow, thank you for that. So, I'm going to check and see if we have any questions in the comments. We do have several people that have joined us. I'm going to just check if I'm looking down. It's because I'm checking my phone and checking for questions. I want to give people time to digest the information and see if they have any questions. But one of the questions that I always get is around fundraising and do I help with fundraising because it's a nonprofit world. And my answer is always yes. And the next step that you can do is visit my website at www.supportingworldhope to check out my services. Even if you're watching this on rebroadcast, I encourage you to post any questions that you have. Jasmine will be willing to answer those questions, and we can move forward with this conversation. She has dropped some amazing nuggets throughout this, even called me out on some of my behavior that I am going to have to examine and get better at. I'm going to get better at calling people in. That's going to be one of my takeaways. I'm going to look real quick to see. And Jasmine, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being our guest. We have people on that are saying great information. How can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, like you said, I will check back for any questions. I'm not always on Facebook, so I'm gonna make the commitment to like be there to like answer any questions. My website is pivotalparadigmproject.org. And if you have like specific questions, you're like, hey, there was something that you said, and I want to ask you a question. My email is jasmine@pivotalparadigmproject.org. And on our website, there actually is like a 30-minute consultation button. I leave my schedule open so you can book at any time to like talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organization. And I will be glad and willing to help.
And it was Jasmine at Pivotal Paradigm
Project.org.
Project.org. I'm going to put that in the comments. Hopefully, I spelled things right. I put it in the comments for those who are interested. Um, Jasmine, any final words?
No, I really enjoy like having this conversation and talking and like any other like questions I look forward to like following up on. I think this is a great time of year to be thinking about DEI, as people are making their fiscal year budget. I think you should go ahead and think about that because like one thing about DEI, you can't fully commit to it unless you are going to fully commit to it. So like as you're making your budget, think about like what you want to do next year, even if that's just like a book club with your staff. There's always a place to start.
That is awesome information. So if there's a topic you want to hear about, hit me up on Facebook at Supporting World Hope to let me know. Tap the live button so you know the next time that we go live. And you can also see other live videos we've done by visiting my website. And we're going to leave you with this. Your mission matters and deserves to be highlighted in the community. Your mission matters and can be an inspiration to those who need it the most. Your mission matters and deserves to be funded at its fullest capacity. And that is Sipping Tea with Sabrina. See you next time. Be blessed.